Here's a guy so monumental, we have countries and holidays named after him. But lately, the story of Christopher Columbus has become one of the most heated debates in all of history. So today, we're going to cut through the noise and really understand the two sides of this incredibly complicated legacy. And really, the entire modern debate, it all boils down to this one powerful question. Was Christopher Columbus a trailblazing hero who connected the entire world? Or was he a ruthless criminal who kicked off centuries of suffering? The answer, as you'll see, is anything but simple, and it really forces us to look at the past from some very different and often conflicting points of view. So just to be clear, our goal here isn't to give you a final verdict, not at all. Instead, we're going to lay out the two competing stories side by side, because by understanding both, we can really start to get why his legacy is so messy and why people feel so passionately about it today. Okay, let's just dive right in. On one side, you've got the hero story, Columbus the trailblazer, the guy who kicked off a brand new era of global connection. But on the other side, you have the villain story, Columbus the conqueror, the man who exploited native peoples and, paved the way for the slave trade. These two views aren't just a little different, they are worlds apart. First step, let's explore the argument for Columbus as a hero. For hundreds of years, this was pretty much the only story you'd hear. It's a narrative built on these big, grand ideas like discovery, progress, and, incredible courage against all odds. This was the version of history most of us grew up with. So the people who hold this view, they're looking at the big picture. His journey, an unbelievable act of bravery and skill that connected two halves of the world that had been totally separate for thousands of years. He's seen as this symbol of humanity's unstoppable drive to explore. And he was the spark that started what we now call the Columbian Exchange. And this Columbian Exchange is absolutely the cornerstone of the hero argument because it literally reshaped the entire planet. I mean, think about it. Can you imagine Italian food without tomatoes or Ireland without potatoes? Those came from the Americas. And in return, things like wheat, horses, and cattle came to the New World. From this angle, Columbus wasn't just an explorer, he was the guy who made our modern connected world possible. All right, now let's flip the coin and look at the other side. This counter-narrative doesn't argue that he connected two worlds, that's a fact, but it focuses, intensely and often brutally, on the human cost of that connection. So critics shift the focus away from the exchange of goods and zoom right in on the human impact. They point to the horrific violence against indigenous peoples like the Taino, the enslavement of native populations to dig for gold, and of course the devastating diseases that wiped out millions of people. In this version of the story, he wasn't a discoverer. He was the first domino to fall in a long, dark history of European colonization. And what makes this argument so powerful for many is that it often draws directly from the historical record, including Columbus's own words. This quote from his journal is used all the time to argue that his mindset from the very beginning was about domination and exploitation, not peaceful exploration. Okay, so that brings us to a really important question. You've got these two totally opposite views. So why has this debate gotten so big right now? I mean, why are we re-examining the legacy of a guy who died over 500 years ago? Well, the answer is that our whole approach to history is changing. We're just not satisfied anymore with a single top-down story. We're actively looking for new perspectives, especially from indigenous communities whose voices were ignored for centuries. We're also starting to look at past events through the lens of modern ethics and human rights. And maybe most importantly, we're asking a crucial question. Who gets to tell the story? And this is why it really matters. This isn't just some dusty academic debate about one guy. It's a much bigger conversation about our values. It's about how we choose to remember our history, what statues we put up in our town squares, what holidays we celebrate, and what stories we decide are important enough to pass on to our kids. So we come all the way back to that first question, hero or villain? But you know what? Maybe that's the wrong question. Perhaps trying to squeeze such a complex, world-changing figure into one of two simple boxes just misses the point. The real challenge for us today might be to find a new way to remember the past, one that can acknowledge the incredible consequences of his voyages, while also looking squarely at the immense human tragedy that they set in motion.